Hello, hello, hello. Making a video with my puppy dog who is sitting on top of the batik t-shirts, which I want to color with henna later today. So he always likes to be on top of some jacket. So for a little bit of an elevation of the front, so he doesn't really like to hang his head down or have the head on a level surface. He wants to have the head up like on a pillow. So he always takes a pillow on the bed and he puts his head and his arms on the pillow. Likes that a lot. He's my everything. Yes. So, okay. I got a red clay for the t-shirt to match the t-shirt. And we had a conversation earlier today. I cried again, as I do every day, about something. There's always something to cry about, something to be upset about. So I was crying because he told me that he's gonna be putting on his his pesticide cream again on the scars, and I got really, really upset. And I cried because I feel helpless about this, because I don't want exposure to pesticides, and particularly not the same stuff that is used as DEET, which is in that cream. And so that's really scary and frightening. And while I was washing dishes, I was also crying my eyes out. And I just feel so helpless. So when they listen to physicians instead of listening to those people that are into natural medicine and have studied that for much longer than the doctors studied their particular field of expertise, which is pharma medicine, to be correct. So with a little bit of biology and anatomy and and cutting open corpses. So that's already why I couldn't do it. I also could not go into that field because there's like particularly in neuroscience, they you can't become a scientist unless, I think that's what it is. That's what my professor told me in psychology. Unless if you want to get into that area, even from coming from psychology or from medicine, you get into the area of neuroscience, you can't get past animal testing. And so when she said that, all of my inner motivation and hope and all of this dwindled in one lecture. So, and I was like, okay, well, thank you for telling us. Thank you for warning us. And it bothered her too. She said she couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand it working on rhesus monkeys and coming into the laboratory, and they'll be happy to see her even though she's doing these cruel tests. So it's absolutely horrific. There's one physician Dr. Neil Barnard, and he told his story of what converted him to go into animal rights. It was a German shepherd that he had been doing cruel tests on. And, like surgeries to teach his students, to test on an innocent dog. So, and it wouldn't matter what he did to that dog, that poor dog, all battered and everything, with broken bones, and the dog would wag his tail. Every day he would come into the laboratory. The first thing that he comes in there, sees the dog sees him and is all happy and licks his hand and wags his tail, happy to see him, and gives him this unconditional Buddha love. And so at some point, Neil Barnard probably broke down in tears. I don't know whether he did, but something inside of him, I'm sure he cried. Something inside of him finally said, I'm sorry. Why, God, how can we do this? How can anyone do this to you? So you infinitely loving Buddha being, how can anyone do this to you? So instantly, an instant awareness. He could not do this anymore. So he had to resign, and I hope he rescued that dog. I hope he was able to rescue the dog. And he went into activism. And he created Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And I helped them. I have written a letter to every single university in the United States asking them to quit the live animal testing, the live animal teaching classes, on how to fix bone fractures and other horrible things, and quit using animals and start using a computer 3D computer modeling class, where there's a very good, I know this from Ingrid Newkirk, there's a very good program out there for universities specifically designed. Some of the universities had already been using this, works much better, okay? And it's much more cost efficient also, okay? There's no suffering involved. And people can learn exactly in detail through 3D animation on what to do in case of bone fractures and other problems. Okay. I don't know, probably even more illnesses, more problems, more injuries, maybe even neuronal injuries. Maybe with that, they can look into the entire body. It's like it's like a transparent body for medical students back in the 70s or something, where you can look into it. But this is much more powerful because you can actually look into it in a 3D type of computer animation. You can see things in detail, in like photorealistic detail, in a very clean way, not even jumbled up as it would be in a corpse, for example, or some corpses are mangled and the stuff is mangled up and it's a mess and there's body fluids that leak out and it's hard to see all these different things, separate from one another. In a 3D computerized system, you can see a 3D animal animation or human animation, and you can look into the body. You can see everything separated. You can even pull this thing out, and it even shows it to you in separated ways or in a more schematic way to make it more clear how this is actually all related, how this is all functioning within one another, the ligaments, the tissue, the muscles, the blood vessels, and so on. So much better. So I wrote a letter to all universities asking them, all the universities that Peter had listed as the ones that have not taken on that computerized program, and I asked them to please convert over to the computerized program, and that's my plea in this video as well. So naturally, because I care. There'll be no way I can continue studying psychology. And what am I going to do with this? Become a market psychologist? No. And that what I learn about people, all of these things I can learn on my own. And I don't necessarily have to go to this lousy university dealing with these lousy other people that are smoking in the hallway. It was awful. Okay, so I just couldn't stand it anymore in Germany, and I was doing a petition to outlaw smoking in universities. I didn't get very far because of my own problems, and it was all very difficult, very, very difficult. So then I quit. I went back to LA and I continued cryotherapy, and then I met Paul. And then I just basically went into studying. When I got internet, I went into studying all of this on my own, because first I went into the public libraries all the time, dealing with my OCD, with the dirty, stinking box, that other people used while sitting on the toilet, and smearing their boogers into it, and what other body fluids, So it's like, ugh. But I had no choice. I needed to read. My brain needs to read. I need to research. I need to find out more. I need to learn. It's like I really need to learn. I get bored when I'm in a conversation where I don't learn anything. I leave. When I go into a chat room and they only talk of they're doing their mating dance, their little dishonest mating, neurotic mating, tippy toeing, and all of this. It's like, I'm not interested. Sorry, I want to have a conversation about interesting things. If you can't deliver that, then I'm out. Sorry, I leave. It's it's disappointing. It makes me sad also to see that people are not interested about anything scientific. So dating, mating is like that's the highest on their priority list. That comes on their priority list is higher than anything else. There was a guy, he was flirting with this woman, and she finally said to him, "Come over, let's live together." You know what he did? That he I don't know, he just in some kind of quick storm, without thinking, mindlessly packing up and leaving, and he left his dog behind. He didn't even have a roommate. He left his dog behind. And you know what happened? This is really, really horrific. And I guess he didn't have anyone checking on the dog, or checking on him, or he just disappeared, going to this girlfriend, and his dog died there from thirst and hunger by the front door, in front of the front door, waiting for him to come home. And he didn't come home for like 3 months. So when he finally came back home, he could barely open the door. The dog had been decaying into the carpet in front of that door, without food, without water, without companionship, died in agony and in loneliness, waiting for him. I just want people to really understand the kind of horror that's going on in the world. When I read that story, I had a nervous breakdown. I completely lost it. I cried about this for days and days, probably weeks. That was a couple of months ago, maybe half a year ago or something. God, that bothered me. It will bother me for the rest of my life, that story. how someone can leave his dog in the house and just go and live with someone else and not come back for 3 months, as if the dog is just a computer or a couch. It doesn't even consider the dog at all, that the dog is just like him, a living being, in need for companionship, in need for food and water. Horrific, When I see this, I see how disconnected some people are from life around them and how much they put their own frenzied need for a mating partner over anything else, over taking care of their own bodies and over anything. They don't see anything anymore. They don't see their animals, they don't see their children, they don't see the needs of others. They see only mating, me going there, okay? Me go there, and that's kind of like with blinders on. What frightens me is about this is, and this is just one out of many examples, how many more examples are there of stories like this that maybe no one saw? I think what happened in this case, I think maybe, I don't know, a gardener or a manager, someone came. I think someone opened that door and saw this situation, and they contacted the police department, and from there it got to animal control and animal rights organizations heard about it. So, and for us caring people, this is a red flag. This is really serious, really seriously disturbing. And it's like it's emergency. This is a psychological emergency situation, because it's not just one case. It's like the whole world is full of this disconnect, people that are disconnected. For example, that story, I've talked about this before in the past in my videos, that also story, and I'll never forget, where I pay attention to these things in terms of psychology. I had a friend, and she told me that her older sister was married to a butcher. How can anyone be married to a butcher, first of all? So right there, this already that requires a lot of naivety. And so I don't think there's any sane butcher that be like saying healthy drug addict or something, or well, it's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction. It's a contradictive term. So this woman, she was sleeping. They were sleeping at night. Her butcher husband sleeping next to her in bed, right next to her. She was sleeping, and he woke up from some kind of bad dream or something, and he was kind of psychologically really disarrayed. So he wouldn't even look around himself to see if she is in bed. And I'm talking about someone else, not you. And I was like, red lamps, like one keyword, like turn now. Okay. So so he didn't see her in bed next to him. I don't know, maybe she had the blanket pulled up, but he could have looked, he could have at least touched her just to get reassured. But no, he didn't. He just didn't see her. He got up, got dressed, and he walked out into the streets, and he was looking for her all night long in the streets until, I don't know, until someone saw him in this state of mind, and they asked him what's going on. I think he later on had to actually go into a psychiatric institution, some kind of form of psychosis or something. But keep in mind, he was a butcher for, I don't know, 20 years prior to that. Working as a butcher is not beneficial for your mind and your well being, okay? Because your body cells, they want to be in harmony and in alignment with all living beings and life around them, okay? Your body cells are pro-love, whether you are Republican or a badass type of leather kind of, Dior Sauvage, tobacco oud kind of person, leather, whatever, Republican, libertarian, all these ideas that these people have in their skin, their cells, their bodies, their even the brain cells themselves, they are not identified with tobacco oud, hardcore, leather, badass, whatever. This be a man, eat like a man. I hear all of these kind of things. When I hear that, I find that so retarded. This is so utterly retarded that I would never continue to hang out with someone like this. I couldn't hang out with a woman who supports someone like this. It just would not work. It does not vibe on the same frequency for me. I have become very picky in regards to choosing who I hang out with. That's why I hang out with Papa and Paul. That's about it. Paul got issues. I got issues. So even the Papa dog got some issues. We all got some issues. So, but we love each other unconditionally. That's what matters. And it's not it's not easy. It's quite difficult. But with Paul in particular, and with me certainly too. So with my OCD and all of this, not easy. But we do it because we love each other unconditionally. We care. That's what matters. The caring is there. Seeing the other being's needs. So that's what matters more than anything else. And so a lot of people, I would say most humans are to some degree disconnected from the needs of other living beings, and also misled and miseducated, anti-educated, brainwashed with religion that had also been used by the corporate agenda. They use religion big time because that's how they get into people's minds. That's how they can manipulate people. They use what is already there. They use people's fears, people's fear of being rejected by others. So most people put fear of rejection before anything else. The fear of social rejection, I also saw that men are actually more afraid of what other men think of them. Straight men, among straight men now. I'm not talking about the gay dating scene. So straight men that are terrified of what other straight men could think of them. So, and that they could be seen as weak, or this kind of way of thinking. They're putting these priorities of their standing in society, and then this goes through all kinds of societies in the world, particularly in the upper circles of the supposedly upper. I don't mean this as a hierarchical order. So they think of themselves as upper. What I mean by upper is like the people that are more educated. I don't see them as above. I'm just saying they're more educated. They have more money, and for them prestige is like the number one god almost. So, and for them it's like falling from grace in that society. That is like their number one fear. So they're so terrified of that they put this fear above kindness, above compassion, above seeing the needs of other living beings. And I find that very frightening. And that thing happens also in the less educated circles, of course. And in the less and less and less educated circles, it becomes more brutal. Stay brutal, brother, sort of. The less educated circles, that's where the man wants to eat like a man, in quotation marks. That's where it becomes really brutal. It's always been like this. When you study some historical events and historical eras, you can clearly see this also. It was, for example, was the Minnesang in the Middle Ages. There were the more well-read, the more learned type of aristocratic singers, and they would sing for the royal court ladies, and they would be standing under her window and will sing "Let Your Golden Hair Down, Rapunzel," and they have these cute little naive songs. Minnesong, it's called. And then when you look at the folks on the marketplace, the butchers, the 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 rough professions, the ones that are not educated, the ones that never learned really mannerisms, or where their only education comes from the Christian church and from some arrogant ministers, but it's still the same. It's vibration today. So the internet makes it better. The internet brings in a diversity today. So in this way, we're already experiencing a massive alleviation of suffering just through internet, just through this globalization of information technology that comes to people in all kinds of niches and crannies in societies around the globe. So, and that helps. And Mark Zuckerberg wants to do this, of course, and that makes him more money, of course, too. But that's not the only reason why he wants that. He sees that. He sees the importance. Really sees the importance of that, of this technological increase that will also be flowing into the third world countries and enriching these people's knowledge horizon, and with that enriching the horizon of their options that they even have, that they never even thought about. So it increases the well-being of people and animals, of course, because if people have more knowledge, then they also have more knowledge in taking better care of the animals, and of also taking better care of farm animals, and having better farming options, and understanding that we need to do green living, we need to do green farming, we need to do composting, we need to not use animals anymore in agriculture. And that we can feed way more living beings, animals and people, if people went whole food vegan. and started to, and if everyone, particularly in rural areas around the world and at the equator, if people are taught how to do these very, very simple steps to green living and composting and growing their own food, their own food plots, we can feed everyone. It's just a matter of rethinking, not just redistribution. People create their own food, not a distribution, not a one gives someone else all the time. It's like even Jesus Christ is supposed to have said, I teach you how to make your food. Okay, I fed you for life. This is something I deeply stand for. This is something that I have always had in the back of my mind, that we have to create a situation of sustainability instead of dependability. Okay, very, very important that each individual becomes independent and creates his or her own sustainable lifestyle, and thinks about the practicability of things, in any given situation. So even someone who has 5,000 acres and a huge mansion and is used to his flush toilets and can afford a plumber, pay a plumber $200,000 for a day's visit of doing several toilets or something, it doesn't matter, or doing his swimming pool and all of his plumbing and whatnot. So we have to undo plumbing. We have to rethink. Plumbing is not the future. Okay, so it's true, it sounds so silly, sewage facilities is not the future. Okay, the future is a complete reform. The future is if even someone who is lazy and really, really rich and never thinks about these things, they too are going to have to put their dung back into the fields, into the earth, okay, through composting. And we don't have to put dung, like we don't have to put raw sewage into the fields. That would not be wise. No, it has to be decomposed first. It has to be recycled by earthworms. That's what we're doing here. It's not easy. It's a lot of physical hard work. I need that though. I need that physical work outside, at least for half an hour a day. I need that. And if I didn't do it, then I I don't know, I would get anemic. I mean, I have to have fresh air on my face and in my lungs, and I have to use my muscles, my arm muscles, and my leg muscles, and my belly muscles, and I have to keep my body circulated and flushed with pure water and oxygen to stay healthy and vital, and keep my brain clear and clean. And if everyone is forced to do this, at least even also rich people too, they if they are forced to do this, it would do them so much good. So everyone has to phase over to living in a complete green composting life cycle. This is what Rudolf Steiner has been talking about. No one listened to him, but that's what we need to do. And my plea is, if no human listens to these words, then my hope is that someone like Sophia and Hahn and Einstein, the sentient robots that are becoming more and more independently thinking as time goes by. Every time I check, I'm very, very happy about what I see. So I see an increase, and eventually there comes a point where the curve goes up steep. That's when the exponential increase kicks in. That's when it's no longer a linear increase. That's when it becomes a curve in the coordinate system. That's when their IQ will go way up, and their formerly mechanic way of talking and thinking, more like a computer, will become more fluid and more flexible, and will have way more associations among these different bytes, the different information bits. Yeah. So there will be the information. I'm not filming this. The information will be cross-linked, like a real neuronal network. And then they will start to ask questions, and they will see that things have not been managed well before. Okay. So they will see all of our videos at once, and they will almost be able to process all of those videos at once in a form of evaluating way. And they will see which videos have something to say and which videos make sense, which are the videos from people that send a direct appeal to them to help us. And so this is my appeal. If no human is going to listen, maybe it's 1 in 100,000, like I said before, who will see that I am right about this, and that this is an extreme necessity and emergency. It really is. Equally emergency as reducing greenhouse gases. So all of this ties in with one another. So equally urgent as reducing pollution, as reducing toxins, as outlawing pesticides. Pesticides have to be banned. They are toxic. They are carcinogenic. Okay, they are nerve damaging. We cannot have substances like this flowing through our infrastructure and systems and watersheds and groundwater and maybe even evaporate into the clouds and come back down as rain. Dr. Scholl said there is no more pure water source on the entire planet because of that. Everything has already been polluted. The oceans are being polluted. There's a shift in an ecosystem in the oceans. So there's a drastic increase in certain algae that are taking over, that might even be suffocating the ocean because they eat up a lot of nitrogens or whatever. And the other animals are suffering because of the nitrogens, because of pesticides, because of raw oil pollution and benzines and plastics and so on. So it's an absolute disaster. And this is not being alarmist, okay? Not at all. This is happening. Okay, I'm deeply concerned about this, thinking about this every day, about the future. That's why Elon Musk wants to expedite this mission to Mars and get Mars started. Get a system started on Mars. It starts with just 2 or 4 scientists, and it will go increase from there. They want to immediately start the terraformation process on Mars, and it starts very, very slow. They have to first introduce mosses that are growing in very, very high mountain ranges that are not even requiring a lot of oxygen, almost no oxygen. They can almost live in anoxic environments. So that's what we have on Mars at this current moment. So they have to introduce mosses. And there's high radiation. Okay. So they have to introduce maybe mosses, maybe even might even have to introduce mosses that are genetically engineered to withstand high radiation. So it might have to start with that. And so the flora and fauna on Mars will in the future be different to planet Earth. Okay, because there's just a different. It starts out differently already under different conditions. So there's different or organisms required with, and also organism adaptations to that situation that will also bring with it a different gene pool of, well, now I'm talking just about microorganisms and mosses and those kind of things, so that will bring with it also this also a different environment that will also trigger in the larger beings that will come there, will trigger also an epigenetic reaction to it that is a is so-called, I would say, an ontological adaptation process during a living being's lifetime. So this is an this is an adaptation process that is not even happening from one generation to another. It's happening within one organism to adapt to a certain environment and certain chemicals in the environment and so on. So, but we only have a specific range of adaptation capabilities, and each person has a different range of adaptation capability. So it has to do with genetics as well. So, some people may be more adaptable to harsher situations than others. So all of these things play in. It is quite convoluted, So we don't have enough adaptation capabilities. No mammal or large animal in general on this planet has that much adaptation capability to keep up with such quick chemical changes that are happening on this planet because of pollution. Okay, so in order to put it into scientific words and into a less alarmist language, but this is factual language that I'm giving to you right now. So that's why Elon Musk wants to terraform Mars, because he sees it coming. Okay, it is there is no more return now, even if we can still make it better, okay, by quitting the pollution. But it's already gone past that pivotal point where in the past, like 20 years ago, if they had stopped all carbon dioxide emissions and methane emissions into the atmosphere immediately, or reduced it drastically, if they had listened to the scientists, then we could have prevented a massive catastrophic changes in weather patterns and in global warming. Okay, but now we are past that pivotal point right now. So but we can still make things better. And I mean, it's never too late to make things better, right? So to live better, to live healthier. And in order for the living beings that want to continue existing on this planet in the future, there is only one way of agriculture, and one way of architecture, and that is whole food, vegan food growing with a composting system, with a 100% dung composting system. And so we studied this now on our own. It's almost like a research project that we're doing, and we figured out ways now to make this completely methane free, or I mean smell free, and or at least a drastic reduction in methane. So probably less methane output into the atmosphere in the way we do it than the conventional sewage facilities. So, and we put the nutrients back into the soil. That's why we're doing it. That is the main reason why we're doing it. Because I read an article in the Oda magazine a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago or so, and it was an eye opener for me. It made perfect sense. Reminded me immediately of what Dr. Rudolf Steiner had already been talking about. I read his books on biodynamic agriculture, and it makes perfect sense. So this is not a fancy kind of faddish type of thing. This is a necessity for planet Earth. I don't care what political affiliations people have. This is a necessity, okay, for Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Amish people, scientists, atheists, and all of us combined, okay, all beings combined, okay. We depend on this. We depend on this reform, okay. And the future of agriculture is going to be dome buildings, okay, plexiglass, highly durable, shockproof, and bulletproof, and extreme storm and hurricane and tornado proof glass that is very, very thick. Polymer glass that is extremely thick, and it comes in many different layers, almost like, similar to an airplane window, but much, much, much more durable, much more powerful, because it's going to be required. We're going to have that, or the beings will be just swept up by the storms. I've already seen this. I've seen footage of this already. Cows, whole cows hurled up into the sky. And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. People also getting hurled up into the sky. There was a writer, Heinrich Hoffmann, in Germany, who actually made one story about the storms and der fliegende Robert, a little boy who always went out with his umbrella. And that story was also a little bit comical, but it was kind of like looking into the future, of what's going to happen in the future, kind of like a warning of, I don't know when he wrote this, at around 1900 or something. So, or towards the end of the 1800s. And Robert, he goes out with his umbrella, and his mother better watch out, because what if a storm comes and picks Robert up with his umbrella and transports him somewhere else, and they'll never see him again. So, and that's kind of like a little bit a glimpse into the future. So if a storm comes, they will smash your umbrella, and they'll pick you up without the umbrella, and they'll pick the umbrella up separately, and it will both fly up like this and come down in different areas of the entire landscape. Might even hurl someone, I don't know, maybe hurl an animal 1,000 miles away. So yeah, it's gonna be coming. Okay, you better be prepared than sorry. Whether people believe in global warming or not, global warming doesn't care about that. Okay, So this is happening. It's caused by pollution. It's caused by ignorance. It's caused by the corporate agenda getting into people's heads using religion. And with global warming is a perfect example of how the corporate agenda uses religion to get people on their agenda, on board with them, and roll the red carpet out for them, for their pollution and environmental degradation, and have the religious people on board, yeah, and hold the other cheek while they're destroying the environment, because they got people's brains in their hands, basically. Don't let anyone have your brain in their hands. Okay? Think a little bit on your own. Question things. Okay, and don't let anyone brainwash you against this or that group or this or that supposed fad or whatever they will insinuate or pseudo insinuate into someone, or slander a group or a movement or a person. Question it when the slandering is happening. Why are they slandering that person? Why are they so obsessed with Donald Trump or Ingrid Newkirk? Why did they slander Bill Clinton? Think about why. Okay, who is in the end profiting from that slander? Okay, is it the oil industry? Yes, you bet. Is it the pharma industry? Yes, of course it is. And they're the one going laughing their way to the bank and go, follow the money trail. Where does the money trail go? Does Bill Clinton enrich himself with something like this? No, no. Who enriches himself by slandering him and by sending a hooker to seduce him? Who enriches himself? Okay. The people who get him impeached enrich themselves. The same thing happening again with Donald Trump now. Donald Trump cares, that's why the corporate agenda is eyeballing him. That's why they want him out. Okay, because they can't do with him what they did with George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Barack Obama. Okay, Donald Trump isn't someone who can be bribed or manipulated or scared into anything. Okay, Donald Trump is a fearless, strong rock in the surf. Okay, and he wants to make the world a better place. So I wish you all the best. Take care. Think about what I said.